The Buffalo Bills roll the Kansas City Chiefs, and Josh Allen takes the MVP lead. That and more on today's edition of Locked On NFL.
The new Locked On NFL. The madman Tyler Rowland is your double shot of NFL espresso, with the Locked On local experts on every major story. Get ready, Rowland is revving up. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Football fans, welcome into the Locked On NFL podcast, bringing you a double dose of the NFL's biggest stories with help from our local experts that know your favorite teams like no one else. I am your host, the madman, Tyler Rowland, joined today by Locked On NFL expert, the legacy, Louis DiBiase. On today's show, we are going to break down a crazy Sunday, Week 9 in the NFL. The Seahawks slaughter the Washington Commanders, and the Commanders lose more than just the game with Jayden Daniels' injury. It was a wild day in the NFC North specifically, with a ton of upsets and some crazy games. And obviously, we have the game of the day between the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs. Before we dive in, I do want to thank you for making Locked On NFL your first listen. Reminder that you can follow our show and hear new episodes ad-free daily on Amazon Music, so go check that out. And thank you for being an everydayer here with us at the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Louis, the Bills do what I didn't think that they could do against this Kansas City defense. They run the ball with success. Josh Allen makes great plays. And on the other side, it felt like what I thought Kansas City's defense might do to Buffalo, Buffalo's defense actually did to Kansas City, getting pressure on Pat Mahomes throughout the game and forcing opportunities.
Yeah, it was surprising for the 2025 Buffalo Bills to be able to pull this off. But I don't think it's that surprising to see the Bills pull this off against the Kansas City Chiefs. When you look at the last 5 years against this football team, they've always been able to beat them in the regular season. But if you're a Bills fan, I would almost be irritated by this win, because it's like, you clearly know how to beat this Kansas City Chiefs football team. You know the blueprint for having Josh Allen take down Patrick Mahomes, but you can never do it in the playoffs. They have won 5 straight games against Kansas City in the regular season. So, yeah, like, it's a big win for the 2025 Buffalo Bills from a seeding perspective. They needed this win against the Patriots, against the Chiefs for the 1 seed in the AFC, which is very important to have full home field advantage. But I don't know, considering the Bills have had such a track record of choking against Kansas City when the games matter, I don't know, this would kind of bother me a little bit.
It's fair to say that the win is muted a little bit because you know what eventually will matter, and it's one of those things where no matter what happens, you kind of can't take too much from it because we know too much before. But that doesn't mean that the folks in Buffalo aren't enjoying this one in the meantime. And my guy Joe Marino from Locked On Bills talked about the win.
The Buffalo Bills get it done, knocking off the Kansas City Chiefs in the regular season once again. This time, it's a big one. The Bills validate who they are as a football team with this win. Plenty of questions about the passing offense, how good this defense is, but they put it together against the exact team that they needed to show that the Bills are truly a contender. You kind of felt like they were falling off a little bit, not playing clean football. What were they going to do against a hot Kansas City Chiefs team? Well, we know the answer. They're able to get it done, running the ball, throwing it, clutch stops on defense. They come away with a huge win and put the Chiefs in a tough spot in their divisional race where they're looking up at the Broncos. The Bills are in it. They're looking like a team that can make some noise here with what they proved on Sunday against the Chiefs.
And to be honest with you, my big takeaway here is kind of what Joe was hinting at there at the end. I'm more coming out of this game looking at the Chiefs and saying, I think the Chiefs are a good team, no doubt about it, but they're 5-4. And I think, hot take alert, whatever you want to call it, I think at this point, there is no way that Kansas City is going to win that division. With Denver being able to pick up a win on Sunday, with the Chargers being able to pick up a win on Sunday, the Chargers already went 3-0 in the division. Like, I know that there are division games left, but I think at this point with Kansas City dropping to 5-4, I'm not taking anything big from this game like, oh, now Buffalo's better than I thought they were, or now Kansas City's worse than I thought they were. I'm not going with either of those. My big takeaway here is I don't think that Kansas City can win that division anymore. It's just a math problem problem for them. I don't believe that the teams ahead of them will falter enough. So that means that if Kansas City is going to win a Super Bowl again this year and get back to the Super Bowl at least, they're going to have to do it through the wild card spot is what I'm declaring at this moment.
Yeah, if you take this game literally from a standings perspective and trying to, instead of forming like this story type of narrative, and you just look at like what this game means, it is a really important win for the Buffalo Bills because the entire NFL is so close right now from a standings perspective that this really does hurt the Chiefs' chances of having home field advantage in the playoffs, but also like their chances of making the playoffs. There are a lot of teams in that conference battling for a spot right now. And you look at a team like the Jaguars, they were able to pull off a close win today. Like you mentioned, the Denver Broncos look legit in the AFC West. The Chargers keep finding ways to pull out wins. Like I mentioned that this is maybe a kind of a frustrating thing with the Bills against Kansas City because this always happens in the regular season, but they might be able to avoid Kansas City altogether this year with a win like this. So from that perspective, I think it is a really important win, and the fact that like your MVP caliber quarterback only had 3 incompletions, which always feels good when you could take down a rival like that in that fashion.
Again, yeah, like I said in the open, Josh Allen definitely taking the MVP lead after a performance like this, but the standings continue to be the big takeaway as we move to our next game, because I thought the next biggest game of the day was the Pittsburgh Steelers finding a way to slow down the Indianapolis Colts offense, winning 27-20, and my guy Chris Carter from Locked On Steelers was on the scene after one of the biggest wins of the year.
Hey everyone, Chris Carter here from the Locked On Steelers podcast here at Acrisure Stadium, where the Steelers came away victorious 27-20 over the Indianapolis Colts, heading into their second loss of the season. It was the defense that rose up against what was the number 1 offense in the NFL, forcing 5 turnovers in a huge way. And Cam Hayward and the defense talked about it. Their primary concern, stop the run, take away the first read. They did that consistently throughout the game, and that led to the pass rush getting home a lot more. TJ Watt causing a huge sack fumble early in the game, and then the rest of the defense fed off of it. Alex Highsmith getting home, Keanu Benton getting home, interception from Peyton Wilson, who I thought went off in this game. And if Peyton Wilson is playing really well and this defensive front's getting after it and this secondary is able to take away some of those early reads, this defense then goes from being what's been a below average unit for most of the year to being a pretty good one. They've got to follow it up and be consistent, but we'll break down more on how they'll do that on the Locked On Steelers podcast, on your favorite podcasting apps, and on YouTube. I'm Chris Carter. We'll see you there.
Who are the Steelers? When did this happen? What is going on? Like, I cannot believe this. You know, after believing in the Steelers and feeling like, man, I can't believe that they're going to blow this opportunity to really extend their division lead. They're going to let Baltimore come back. They come back and do this. I mean, they hold Jonathan Taylor to 45 rushing yards, 3.2 yards per carry. Chris had 5 turnovers. That was just Daniel Jones with his 2 fumbles and 3 interceptions. I mean, like, they just walloped on that offense that was hot as possible coming into it. I cannot believe that this Steelers team, they ran the ball for only 38 yards. Rodgers only threw for 203. It wasn't like the offense was going. That defense literally was just so dominant out of nowhere when they've been awful recently that they shut down the hottest offense. It makes no sense at all that the Steelers defense, looking the way that it's looked recently, is going to come out and not only finally play well, which they haven't done in forever, but play well against this team and get a win. It's just absolutely outrageous. It's why the NFL is the best.
The NFL is the best, and I'll just throw my hands up in the air. I can't figure out this Steelers team. I thought their offense... No, I thought their offense could not produce yardage all season long, but they were kind of the unit carrying them to a winning record in a division lead, and now the Steelers get this really encouraging win where the defense carries them, and you kind of needed to see that before the playoffs against a 7-1 Colts football team that's been throwing and running all over whoever that they play. So yeah, I've just come to terms with, and I thought really like Lamar Jackson played really well on Thursday night. Like, oh, here comes Baltimore. Pittsburgh's going to turn back into a pumpkin. And here's this performance where they force, 3 interceptions on Daniel Jones. So I just come to terms with, I'll never get the Pittsburgh Steelers right every single year. And I think that way right now as well.
No, it's absolutely outrageous, and I don't even blame you because they won't allow it. They won't allow you to understand them. Mike Tomlin gets joy out of being this unpredictable team. I have to believe that, but a crazy win, and you talk about, Buffalo keeping pace in the AFC with a chance to still win the conference if they can win the right games down the stretch. Pittsburgh bringing Indy back down to 2 wins, or 2 losses, that's absolutely critical for Buffalo from that perspective too. So both the games connect to each other perfectly like that. But we're going to move over to the NFC, and specifically the NFC North, where there were 3 wild outcomes that blow your mind.
Today's show is brought to you by our friends over there at Peloton. Look, folks, it's time to break through the busiest time of the year with a brand new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus that's powered by Peloton IQ. It's Peloton's most elevated technology and equipment yet that gives you real-time guidance, and it gives you endless ways to move, whether you want to work out by yourself or if you want to work out with your favorite instructor, like my personal favorite, Alex Toussaint. He always gets me fired up to tackle the day. And the thing I like about Peloton, it helps me achieve more in less times. They have features that help you plan, stay motivated, track your progress, and Peloton IQ also provides personalized workout plans and recommendations. That's something that I use right now during the busiest time of the year covering the NFL. They plan my workouts for me based on my mood, my vibe, and also my favorite instructors. So make sure you check it out and use it, because it also helps you correct your form in real time, and it maximizes your reps. It counts your reps so that you can do it smarter, safer, and more efficient. Let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
Also want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Supply House. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. You need parts for a project fast? Supply House has next day delivery. Talk about a game changer, and their part finder tools and 3D schematics can save you hours on the job where every detail matters. Join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use the promo code SHNFL5. That's SHNFL5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. All right, Louie, let's continue today's edition of Locked On NFL. We talked about the big matchups in the AFC with the Bills beating the Chiefs, the Steelers beating the Colts. Now we move to the NFC, where the NFC North had an insane Sunday. First, we got the Minnesota Vikings with J.J. McCarthy coming back in the fold, and they find a way to knock off the Detroit Lions 27-24. My guy, Luke Braun, the brain, was all over the win.
J.J. McCarthy is ice cold, baby. The Vikings go into Ford Field, where they haven't won in 5 years, and they steal one from the Detroit Lions in another contending season for them, all on the back of J.J. McCarthy, and how quickly a season can turn. No longer are we arguing about Carson Wentz and Max Brosmer and trading for a quarterback at the deadline, and are they going to get rid of the coaches at the end of the year? No, the Vikings are now 4-4, and with losses from the Lions, of course, and the Packers, they're like right back in the thick of the NFC North race with a quarterback that had an imperfect game, to be sure. Issues in the huddle, there was that one interception, but 3 touchdowns and an absolutely ice-cold fade to Jalen Nailor to seal the game. Couldn't ask for a better result. We're about to go live on Locked On Vikings and Locked On Minnesota Sports to break it down. I'll see you there.
I didn't think that J.J. McCarthy had it in him, but once again, like he showed early in the season when he got the chance to play, he does make clutch plays when given the opportunity. So like Luke talked about, it wasn't all perfect for him in essentially his rookie season, but to come up clutch in those moments, to put points on the board when people thought Minnesota's season was over, that's huge. And like we talk about the standings, they're at 4-4 now. The Lions are at 5-3. They're right back in it somehow.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Even if you had doubts about J.J. McCarthy, the fact that people were almost like ruling him dead in the water after 9 quarters of action is just so premature to me. And I think you should have learned from what they had last year in Sam Darnold not to give up on a quarterback so early, where he just hasn't even had an opportunity to prove himself. And I'm still kind of with you, where I'm not sure if J.J. McCarthy can be an elite quarterback at this level for the long term. but I think he did prove again today in a really big game against the Lions where, like you said, you look at the NFC conference, it's just an all-out brawl in the standings. They really had to have this one. For him to come off injury and score 3 touchdowns is really impressive to me. So I think the lesson is just, again, you can have your doubts, but I mean, people were ready to talk about the Vikings moving on and trade for a quarterback, and I just don't think that was ever fair to McCarthy to begin with.
No, you're right. You're right. He needed an opportunity to play, and I think a lot of people, including me, you hear the rumors that, hey, this isn't a real injury. They need to sit him. And a lot of people wrote him off because of that sort of conjecture as well, and that's obviously not necessarily fair. But not only is Minnesota back in it because they knocked off Detroit, but the Green Bay Packers, the team that just cannot be trusted, once again finds a way to embarrass themselves. They lose at home 16-13 to the Carolina Panthers, and my guy Peter Bukowski from Locked On Packers simply can't believe it.
The Green Bay Packers don't yet have the infrastructure, the culture to win a Super Bowl. I'm Peter Bukowski, host of Locked On Packers, with 3 quick takeaways off a dispiriting 16-13 loss at home to the Carolina Panthers. Once again, the Packers come out against an inferior opponent and play down to their opponent. This is when you need your culture, your leadership, your coaching to carry you through. The Packers went 0 for 3. Jordan Love played good enough. They didn't get the right approach from the coach. They didn't get a right approach from the rest of the star players. Where were Micah Parsons? Where was Rashawn Gary? Where was Edgerrin Cooper? Xavier McKinney came through with some nice plays, but it wasn't enough. You score 13 points against a below-average defense that just gave up a 40-burger to the Buffalo Bills. That is not coming out with the right mindset to go win a game. The second one is huge, and that is Tucker Kraft appears to be lost for the season. Reportedly, expectedly, an ACL tear, and that is devastating for a player who looked like he had a chance to be an all-pro player. The good news is this does not affect how I view the Packers against Philadelphia at all. They play down to their opponents. They play up to their opponents. We saw them put it on a Pittsburgh Steelers team that just beat the best record, at least, in the AFC. This Packers team can play with anybody.
Okay, the problem is the Packers are always, praised because they're a young football team. They're the youngest roster in the NFL. But well, when they play in these games and they don't have anybody to lift them up, and none of these guys that Pete's listing off are there to make a play and no one steps up, that's when being the youngest roster in the NFL is a problem. And in these big games that they end up losing, they make mistakes and penalties and turnovers and bad moments and make bonehead plays. And it's like we can't always give the Packers credit because they're the youngest roster in the NFL when in their worst moments, they look like the youngest roster in the NFL, and it's a problem just as much as it's an advantage.
And I don't accept that, yes, they can play with Philadelphia. They have that kind of talent. I said it on Locked On Eagles this past week. I think they have the second highest ceiling of anybody in the NFC, but their floor, why I've been higher on the Lions and the Rams as real competition to the Eagles to win the conference is because those kind of real contenders do not have games like this as often as Green Bay does. So I get Peter's point that, yes, they can play with Philadelphia. They can play with anybody, but I think most teams in the NFL can play with anybody. But what separates the real contenders from teams like Green Bay are these kind of performances. And so I don't accept that. And I think I'm with you. I think the excuses are running out for the Packers. They're older now. They have plenty of playoff experience in big games with this core. And now having this kind of injury, it's why I've been more in on the Rams and Lions, like as a guy that covers the Eagles, as a real threat in this conference.
No, I 100% agree. Like, the Packers are in a place where, you're right, they could play with anybody. They have the talent to knock off any of the best teams in the NFL. But at some point in time, you need to take the next step up from being that, because in the NFL, a lot of teams can be the scrappy any given Sunday team.
Yeah.
Like the Packers.
The Atlanta Falcons could do that. What's the difference?
100 exactly. You're supposed to be different than that if you're Green Bay this year, and they're just proving again that any given Sunday, but they're supposed to have. We did the tiers list on Locked On NFL channel a couple of weeks ago, and Green Bay is supposed to be a team that has graduated up from that to the locked and loaded, and they're simply not there. And losing Tucker Kraft makes them less locked and loaded, I guess, if we're keeping that tier system going on. But the Bears find a way to get back as well in one of the craziest finishes we have seen all season long. They're up by multiple scores on the Bengals. The Bengals come all the way back, take the lead in the final minute, and with 25 seconds left, Caleb Williams throws a monster pass down the seam to rookie tight end Colston Loveland, who takes it to the house. One of the most miraculous, insane wins that I have seen all year. And listen, I know we're talking NFC North, but you gotta feel for my guy Jake Lisco and Locked On Bengals after that defensive performance.
Even with an onside kick recovery and an improbable comeback late in the game, the Bengals could not overcome a putrid defense. This is the worst defense in the NFL by EPA per play in the last 25 years, and it's right up there in points per game, rushing yards per game, yards per game, yards per play. Joe Flacco caught back on fire late in the game to give the Bengals a chance to win a game in which they scored over 40 points. But
I mean, it's all time bad in Cincinnati. And I mean, the Bears find a way to get back though. Like, they have an embarrassing loss. They come back. They're 5-3 now. The Packers 5-2-1. They're all jumbled up. Now Minnesota's at 4-4. Like, a division we thought was a 2-horse race last week is now wide open. And like, even the Vikings could come back and win.
Yeah. And it's a really important win for the Bears because of how they won this football game. I just feel like normally in that situation, Caleb Williams forces the issue, makes some kind of boneheaded play, a turnover, and for him to make that kind of clutch layer throw over the middle to win the football game is really important for Chicago. But for Cincinnati, it's like, I mean, the last 2 weeks, the offense with Joe Flacco that just got traded last second in the middle of a season is carrying you, and this defense 2 years in a row cannot win you a football game. They could very easily be 5-4 right now instead of 3-6, setting up the Joe Burrow return, and that Bengals defense just can't do it. But you reap what you sow. This is how the organization has built this roster. They have built it to score 40-plus points, but to not stop anybody from scoring 40-plus points. So it's hard to feel really bad for them because this is the blueprint that they followed.
It's a shame we won't get to see the Bengals and the Cowboys play this year. That's all I got to say about that.
It'd be 100 to 102.
No doubt. It'd be a basketball score. But we stay in the NFC where two teams go in total opposite directions now as the Seahawks slaughter the Commanders, and the Commanders lose way more than just the game. Do want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of a game, you want to ride the hot hand, you want to hop on the train as the fourth quarter comeback kicks in, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to those fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Louis, let's cap off today's edition of Locked On NFL. We talked about the Bills against the Chiefs. We talked about the Steelers over the Colts, two big matchups in the AFC, a crazy day in the NFC North. Now we got to finish with the Seattle Seahawks and the Washington Commanders. And boy, Washington Commander fans, I do apologize. It was ugly out there. Not only was the game downright disgusting, 38-14, but Jayden Daniels out there with about a little over 7 minutes left, down 31 in the fourth quarter, has a brutal arm injury, and my guy David Harrison from Locked On Commanders recaps it all.
Washington Commanders fell apart, got completely dismantled by the Seattle Seahawks. But at the end of week 9, the concern is not even going to be what happened on the scoreboard, not even honestly what happened on the defense. The concern is squarely on the health and the future of quarterback Jayden Daniels. Left the game midway through the fourth quarter, a 31-point deficit facing the Commanders, yet Jayden Daniels still in the game. Head coach Dan Quinn is going to face a lot of questions about why his franchise quarterback, who's been battling injuries all season long, was still in the game. Now, the arm injury that he looks to have suffered, not connected to either the knee injury or the hamstring injury he had previously, but these are the kinds of things that people start to worry about as games get out of hand, which is exactly what was unfolding here in Northwest Stadium. Those questions are going to have to be answered. We're going to have to discuss the future, what's going on with the Washington Commanders, and everything leading up to the trade deadline. So there is a lot to unpack from this game alone.
I mean, tough injury. And this just kind of is how the season has gone for the Commanders with all the injuries, everything they've dealt with. Like, they could just never get that magic back that they had last year. And I hate to say it, but I got to say it. Kind of feels like RG3.
I was just thinking the same thing, that this really feels like 2013 after they won the division with RG3 as a rookie, and they're kind of the building the roster the same way. And that's the thing, is it felt like they kind of doubled down on the approach last year. They're just too old on both sides of the football, and the injuries are the injuries, and they're extremely unfortunate. But you see again the defensive issues with the Commanders. It just feels like they almost bought in a little bit too much last year on some fool's gold instead of building around their franchise quarterback the right way, and they're kind of dealing with the ramifications of that now. The injuries, again, that's just unfortunate with Daniels, but the Commanders, I feel like they built this team the wrong way, and you're seeing that again this week and all year so far.
Well, I think last year they really caught that, that flash in the pan, that magic in the bottle, and they had a lot of older players signed to one-year deals, and a lot of these older players played really well. They had great momentum. There was something to play for. But now you're in the thick of it. These older players that you already signed, a little bit older, some of the gaps that you filled, not quite as good. Like Marshawn Lattimore's always hurt, and he got hurt again and left this one. You go out and get Deebo Samuel, who's not been bad for them by any stretch of the imagination, but he's just an older player who's always banged up. Is he practicing? Is he out there? Like, it's hard to continue to keep that consistently when you're built on such aged players. It's just tough to do. So I think they're in a tough spot, but the Seahawks just keep on going, man. They're just a really strong, really solid team. They're really balanced as well. That's the number one thing that stands out to me. They just seem like they can win any way. They have an answer for every problem. I think they're a really underrated team that doesn't get enough recognition.
I was really wrong about the Seahawks. I did not think Sam Darnold was going to be able to do this again with a new team, with an offensive line that I thought looked shaky. 4 touchdowns today, over 300, and he had 330 passing yards specifically. I mean, you mentioned Josh Allen as like the MVP favorite now, but Darnold's kind of a dark horse MVP. If you want to put some money on a dark horse candidate, Darnold might be the guy. I mean, he's been so impressive. But overall, like you said, they're so well balanced, such an underrated defense on all 3 levels. Reek Wallen looks like he's back as the CB2, along with Devin Witherspoon, which is a huge improvement over the last few weeks. So Seattle's a legitimate contender in the NFC right now, and I was wrong. I did not think Darnold would be able to do this. But again, like we were talking about with J.J. McCarthy, I think we write off quarterbacks sometimes a little bit too prematurely, and as long as you're in the right support system, the right situation, a lot of these talents can thrive, and Darnold's thriving again in a different city.
Well, I think the reality is a lot of people want to confirm their priors, and it's like, rather than say, hey, maybe Sam Darnold did get better and maybe he's going to still be good. I mean, in the offseason, a lot of people were like, why would you get rid of Geno and then go get Sam Darnold? You know what I mean? Like, there were a lot of people questioning that move, and now it looks like absolute roses. Like, Geno's played terrible this year, and Darnold has been absolutely fantastic. So, 100% good move by Seattle, and they are a dangerous team, and I think they need to be recognized as that.
And even like the way that they went about the wide receiver position, trading away DK Metcalf, letting Tyler Lockett go, I'm like, I'm not sure what they're doing there, getting rid of the weapons for Darnold.
Why are we
and
getting Cooper Kupp in here?
Right.
You know?
And then here's JSN, and he's maybe the offensive player of the year favorite right now. 129 yards again today through the air, a top 2 receiver in football. So I was just really wrong about the approach Seattle took this year, and it's definitely working.
No, it's 100% working, and they're going to be one of the fun teams down the stretch of the season in every matchup that they're in. But we always do a little roundabout of the rest of the games here and like to go through some of the other matchups. Chargers 27-20. I'll tell you, the Chargers won the game and the Titans are bad, but just a quick thing. Joe Alt got hurt in that game. His ankle re-injured it. It's not good. He's going to miss a lot of time. They also lost Bobby Hart to a groin injury, which looked like a knee injury in this game. And the Titans pass rush, which is not good, had 6 sacks. The Chargers won the game because they're a lot better coach than the Titans, but that's concerning for the Chargers going forward. The Patriots moved to 7-2, 24-23 over the Falcons. They hold on as Drake May's kind of a buzzsaw there with 3 touchdowns. 49ers 34-24 over the Giants. That was domination pretty much all the way through. The Broncos win late 18-15 over the Houston Texans. The Jags 30-29 win in OT over the Raiders. The Rams take care of the Saints 34-10. Any of those games stand out to you?
Yeah, for me, it's the Patriots 1-score win over Atlanta. Obviously, the Falcons are not this top-tier contender, but Drake May continues to look kind of like Sam Darnold, where he's an underrated MVP candidate right now. And with the schedule being the way it is, I don't think New England, that drop-off that maybe you thought could come at some point this year, I don't know if it's coming. Every year you see this kind of team. It was Denver and Washington last year. I'm not sure if New England will be able to sustain it long term, but right now they are that kind of team. And Drake May, I mean, he almost looks as good as Jayden Daniels last year, if not better. And I really did not see that coming. But I mean, as you know, Mike Vrabel tends to turn things around fast. And man, like the Patriots are really impressive. Right? I can't believe the way that the season's going for them.
Yeah, they have an easy schedule, no doubt, but they're taking advantage of it as well. And that you can only play the games that are on your schedule. I guess I do want to point out the Broncos, like 18-15. It wasn't a shiny game. CJ Stroud had a concussion in that game and left, and Davis Mills played. That's something to watch for the Texans going forward, as this loss at home really hurts them as they drop to 3-5 in a competitive AFC. It's going to be hard for them to kind of overcome that slow start that they had, especially if CJ Stroud is out for any length of time with a concussion. He got hit really hard. It was kind of a scary situation, but the Broncos just keep finding ways to win, and they're 7-2, and it's just like, you know, they're just perpetually overlooked. It just keeps happening, but they just keep on winning.
Yeah. It almost feels like the Broncos are kind of building a 49ers-like team in the AFC.
That's
where
a great point.
Maybe it's not the best roster on paper, but it's a really good defense. It's the perfect quarterback for a great play caller. A lot of weapons that just fit what they do well. You know, Troy Franklin's becoming a solid role player, a compliment to Cortland, Sutton and, Marvin Mims, Harvey and at the running back position. So again, it's not maybe the best team in the conference, but like the Niners, it's just all a really perfect marriage of coaching and the roster on both sides of the ball personnel. So the Broncos, I think they're a legit contender in the AFC. And I just think, Bo Nix is just the perfect quarterback for Sean Payton.
Yeah, it's a really nice recipe is what I would call it. They just have the right mixtures going on. But with that being said, that is going to do it for today's edition of Locked On NFL. I am your host, the Madman Tyler Rowland, for my co-host, the Legacy, Louis DiBiase, as we tell you every episode. Thanks for tuning in, and stay safe out there.